All right, guys, we are back, Ryan and David with the B Squad, and today we are talking the interview. Let's roll. All right, David, interview, man. What we need to know about it. But before we get to that, if you like what you see, like, share, subscribe. Got to get those plugs in, guys. We really appreciate it. So, all right, man, interview. Tell us what you know about it, dude. How important is it? Does it always happen? Should somebody insist on having one?
Yeah. Well, in an ideal world, it happens pretty quickly for the clinician and the recruiter. But yeah, I always tell people, don't overthink the interview. Enjoy it, number one, and number two, learn as much as you can so you can make an informed decision. Usually, once an interview takes place, all parties are like maybe 80% there in terms of, hey, we want this one, because the manager can typically see on your resume, through your references, through your skills checklist, hey, this person can do this assignment. I feel pretty good in that respect. A lot of times, at least again in my experience, we see from the feedback I hear with candidates more conversations with managers about their personality, how they handle stressful situations, how they get along with others, that kind of thing. As canned and cliche as they may be, because a manager wants to make a good decision and bring in someone who's going to be there for potentially only 13 weeks, maybe longer if someone extends on an assignment. They want someone who will fit in with their team. The last thing a manager wants to do is bring in someone who's going to throw a bomb in their team and mess up what hopefully is already a good operation. So as a candidate interviewing, be ready to showcase and be proud and exhibit your skills, and be ready to answer the occasional HR ringer question. If you were a color, which one would you be and why? Depending on the process. Sometimes a facility will work with a vendor who has maybe a pre-screen or something like that. Or a lot of times a hospital will have someone from the human resources department call, a non-clinical person call and do the interviews.
It could be any number of people along the way.
Could be, yeah.
Depending on how big they are and kind of what their process is.
The most efficient process that we see is the actual hiring manager who you'll work with on a weekly basis calls and does the interview themselves. But not all of them have that time and luxury to do that.
And now we're in a world where we do video interviews.
Video interviews. We see auto offers, which have always been around sometimes, but really have picked up some steam during the pandemic. So those can be a little interesting because they'll either have a clinical team look at your resume and all the information and say, yes, this person is good for the job, or they might just, if you're submitted at a manageable bill rate, they might say offer. They're going to trust the agency because they're an approved vendor. They've placed travelers at the facility before. I think those are okay in some respects if you're a seasoned traveler or a seasoned clinician, and maybe you've worked with your recruiter before and you guys mutually agree, I can take this offer. Your recruiters maybe had travelers at the facility before, maybe even in that unit, and can vouch for it, maybe even let you talk to one of the travelers who's been there. But I would still push and say, hey, can I talk to the manager? 5 minutes, please. Most managers will do that. And then certainly if you're a new traveler, I would strongly advise against taking an auto offer. Push for an opportunity to talk to the hiring manager, even if it's just for 5 minutes. And if the manager won't carve out 5 minutes, find another assignment.
Totally agree. And honestly, there's so much involved and time and effort and just really resources in terms of dollar bill for an agency to get somebody plugged into a job and there's no there's no interview that's going to be had. An auto offer happens, especially if somebody's never traveled before, they're going a long way from home. We try to always insist on some kind of interview if we can for those folks, because a lot of times we don't even get any of the information, right? Job posting comes out from the customer, it's this shift, this location, this is it, right? So this is their opportunity to get really any answers to questions that we maybe necessarily can't even get or will never get.
Correct. So. And if you think you're going to be getting an interview, if your recruiter says, hey, you've been submitted to this job and everybody's kosher about it, keep your phone by you. Sometimes, and clinicians work crazy schedules. Sometimes you're sleeping and your phone's off at 2 p.m, whatever. Nothing you can do about that. But a lot of times candidates will say, oh yeah, I've had 5 calls. I didn't answer any because I screened my calls. And it's like, don't do that.
Yeah.
If you have your recruiter say, what area code should I be expecting? That way you can pick up the call, because sometimes if a manager calls and the clinician doesn't answer, they'll just move on to the next person.
They will. They'll just move right going.
And sometimes they'll leave a voicemail, say, hey, call me back when you've got a minute, because they really like your experience. That happens a lot. But if you've think you've good chance you get an interview, keep your phone by you, answer it.
Yeah, totally agree.
Worst case scenario is you just hang up on them if they're a telemarketer.
So when we make a submission over to a customer or VMS, right, and we get the information to them, when we submit it over to them, a lot of times we're going to plug in, hey, this is a good time to call them, right? Does that always get over to the interviewer?
Yeah, if it's part of the profile that's get presented to the manager, certainly. But again, a lot of these managers are very high level in our experience that we've seen, and what they look at and what they review. That's usually a small snippet. Is this person's available, between 2 and 4 p.m. most days before they head to their night shift. Yeah. A lot of times they don't look that granular on the profile, so they're going to call.
Don't get frustrated with your recruiter if these phone calls come through. I mean, it's not always something they can control. Yeah, with so many working parts.
Correct. Yeah, because very rarely do schedules line up. Yeah. So.
Yeah. Right on. So what would you say is probably one of the most important things to do in an interview from a traveler's perspective, in terms of questions or things to ask that cover, what shifts they're working, all that kind of stuff? Because a lot of times, they can get that information, but a lot of times they don't have it yet. They don't have their shift schedule, none of that kind of stuff. They know, hey, I'm working nights and rotating weekends.
I think one of the smartest things that a candidate can do is think about what is most important for them to be successful, not only in providing good clinical care, but also being a part of the team. So if it's important to you to know what the culture of the unit is, which is a very again, cliche thing is like, what's the culture? But a good manager is going to know what makes their team up in terms of, is it a fun group? Is it a all business group? Is it a little bit of both? Is it, hey, we're world-class clinicians. I mean, we're at a level 1 trauma teaching hospital. We are hooked up the whole time, and you don't sit down. You want to know those kind of things to say, oh, that's an environment that I can thrive in, or that's an environment that I'll fall behind in, or, one that I can be fine in, but I won't enjoy as much.
And a lot of those things you just brought up are pretty nuanced things too. So just having the conversation with the hiring manager in a lot of cases, or whoever's interviewing you, you can kind of pick those things up, right?
Correct, yeah.
Those are things we always would pitch to people.
Yeah, and you hit on a couple things. Is sometimes we just get the job details that says nights, med-surg. And when the candidate gets on the phone, it might be, nights, but it might be a higher acuity step-down unit with a strange makeup of patient diagnoses. You want to ask those things if those are important to you, what the patient ratios are, how scheduling works. Again, if those are important to you as the candidate, ask them, so that when a job offer comes in, hopefully you can feel confident in saying, I accept, I'm excited, let's do it. And you're not sitting there thinking, oh, I wonder how this is going to go. If you're a flexible person, you don't care about all that, just get to know the manager and say, hi, you want me on this job because I work hard, let's do it. And usually it'll fall in your favor.
Yeah. And one thing we always would preach is, there's no reason, there's not a big reason why they're not on the phone together, right? I mean, you're on the phone because it's something, as a candidate, because it's something you want to do, right? It kind of meets your needs in a lot of different location, shift, pay, the whole thing. They're calling you because they see a lot of good qualities on paper. You're attracted to them, so you're really just a meeting of the minds. And you hit on it early in the show, which was, there's a good high percentage that if you're just talking to them on the phone, there's probably going to be an offer coming through. So the bottom line is,
not always, but good chance.
A good chance. But walking away from the interview process, like, you should know yes or no, this is something I'm going to do. I shouldn't really go back to my recruiter and say, I don't know if that's what I want to do, right? I mean, I always feel like whenever I would work with any candidates, that I would always preach, hey, look, if we're going to find out new information, we got to find it out in the interview. You know what I'm saying? So that way you're walking away saying yay or nay.
Yeah, I think that's true for the most part. There's just always exceptions to every rule. Sometimes managers call you and they blow in like a dust storm in the middle of Oklahoma. And it's like you're overwhelmed by how excited they are or how quickly they ask questions because they know they've got a staff meeting in 10 minutes or something like that, and you just don't get all of your questions in. That's okay. Again, if it's something critical, a lot of managers will leave their contact information if you have follow-up questions, or you can go to your recruiter and say, hey, I've got one more question. just didn't get to ask it for these reasons. Can you reach out to your contact and see if you can get that information from the manager? And usually they're going to be pretty accommodating if the interview goes well. So,
you had to sneak in that Oklahoma reference, huh?
That's right.
There you go. Yeah.
Born and bred, baby.
Love it. Anything else, man?
That's all. Hopefully the interviews go well.
That's right. Right on, man. Thank you so much. Hey guys, thank you so much for stopping by the B Squad show. If there's anything that you like about what we do, we'd love you to like, share, subscribe to our channel. So until next time, I guess. Thank you, David. Appreciate it, man.
Yeah.
All right, guys. Take care.